Alrighty, everyone, it's time for another tier list. This one's been a little slow in the making. I wasn't sure if I'd bother with one since not that much changed in the meta since the last one came out, but then I noticed a few things, so sure, why not? Here is the tier list we came up last time for the last patch 4.1. Now, I will note Kislev is B tier, which has changed a lot since Shadows of Change 2.0 came out. But even before that, before people really knew how powerful Mother of Stanky was, we probably should have rated Kislev a little bit higher. This time I will just be going solo, so now there won't be any incorrect opinions for once. That'll be nice. Everything will just be perfect. So let's see how we compare now. I'll just go in the order they have in this little stack here. So Warriors of Chaos, probably A tier. I guess I'll do strength from left to right, but for now I'll put these guys in A tier here. Yeah, Warriors of Chaos just really, really strong. Their roster has a ton of versatility, and their lords keep getting buffs. Like Azazel got some of the Slanesh Rampage buffs, so now that Rampage is better, Warriors of Chaos got better with Azazel just adding more options to their already extremely solid and versatile roster. With Archaon, I think Be'lakor is Warriors of Chaos, right? Anyway, you have Archaon, you have the Nurgle Chaos Lord if you want some healing, you have Azazel if you want some rampages, and then Tzeentch also got some buffs that still affect Warriors of Chaos. They're so strong, man. Every update that comes out for any of the Chaos Gods, the Warriors of Chaos get the benefit, which is huge. Vampire counts, pretty solidly B tier, very middle of the pack. I tend to think that they're weaker, though I have lost several games against higher tier Vampire counts players, so I guess I have to put some respect on their name there. They're a hard faction to play well right now. Anyone can grab them and just slap them down, but they won't probably win. But if you're facing like a high tier Vampire counts player, they're still pretty solid. Demons of Chaos still resting in D tier. Some players can make them work, but it's usually not the faction strength, it's just the player playing them being better than their opponent. Demons of Chaos still really suffer from demonic instability being too punishing for them. They really just struggle. Tzeentch, I'm going to put them in S tier, though I will put them at the bottom of S tier. I think they're the worst S tier faction, but they are really, really strong. With the DLC giving them more units, including the armor-piercing light cav of Centaurs of Tzeentch, were actually quite huge. And Changebringers being really strong, having a melee lord option so you can go with a cultist hero. Just a lot of good improvements for Tzeentch, but it does make them a little overstrong. Thankfully, Kairos got nerfed, and one of the hot fixes they took away his regrowth, which made him unbanned in our Vermin League and stuff. But Tzeentch is still really S tier even without Kairos' regrowth. Vampire Coast, another solidly B tier faction. I would personally put them above Vampire Counts. So I'll do this little switcheroo, but they're solid. They're not very oppressive. They have key weaknesses and you can beat up on them pretty good, but I still think Coast have some strengths that a lot of people enjoy. Cheap armor piercing shooting, unbreakable, of course, because you're undead, access to vampires and death magic, very strong. So just not a lot to complain about for the Vampire Coast. They're good. They're solid. They're fine. Slaanesh. I still think they're down in C or D tier, depending on who you talk to. I'll put them in C for now because I know with the Rampage changes, some people are really, really enjoying them, especially as Azazel seems to have benefited the most from the Rampage changes. Just taking him with Pavane is really strong. It is up in the air right now how strong they actually are, but we'll see. They're getting a ton of play right now because they're one of the few things that actually like really changed in the last patch to come out, besides all the DLC factions getting even stronger. Ogre Kingdoms. B or A? I'll put them in A for now. Below Warriors of Chaos, but A. I do think the Warriors of Chaos are better than the Ogre Kingdoms, but the Ogres have been surprising me. After 2 patches ago, they got all their Ogre Bulls nerfed in terms of cost, and they got their Nobbler Trappers nerfed in terms of cost. I thought they would be much worse than they are. Yeah, Ogre Bulls aren't the best right now, but Iron Guts are still amazing. I always take 5 Nobbler Trappers, and they always pay for themselves. Lead Belchers are solid, Maneater Pistols are solid, so you still have enough to make this roster work. And Iron Guts are really carrying them right now, but still strong, still A tier. Masses, very powerful right now. Nurgle! I'm going to put Nurgle in D tier. I don't have anybody else here to contradict me and tell me I'm wrong. I'll honestly put Nurgle below Demons of Chaos. Demons of Chaos are better than Nurgle in my opinion. Nurgle just sucks, man. Nurgle's so bad. The only matchups he's good in is if like the opponent can't deal with a big old Kugath blob, which is like Slanesh and maybe Corn, but that's about it. Their Chaos Knights are decently strong, but every other Chaos roster has Chaos Knights, and they're all better at it than you are. Like, even Corn, I'll get to that in a bit, but even Corn is better than Nurgle right now. It's just really, really rough. So I don't know. They overly rely on that hero hammer to try and get through things, either Kugath and Occultist on a War Shrine, or the Chaos Sorcerer Lord and Double Exalted Hero. It's very predictable. They're down to the dumps. Norska. I'll put them in B. I'll put them in B beneath the vampire counts. But they're doing okay. Their front line is fine. Their mobility is strong with skin wolves and dogs. Their skirmish game is okay. Lord options are pretty low. So, yeah, they're kind of just B. They're okay. They could use some buffs. Probably couldn't use any nerfs, but they're fine. What else? I'll put them in C. I'll put them ahead of Slanesh. What else have been doing a little bit better now that people are kind of learning how to play with them in Warhammer 3? Triple Waywatcher Kite isn't nearly as effective as it used to be, but people are kind of learning that you can go with pike and shot builds, or some decent cavalry builds are solid. They're still very matchup dependent, and they still definitely need buffs. I don't think they're a strong faction, but they're stronger than Slanesh. They're still down in D tier, but they're around. Skaven, above Slanesh, below Wood Elves. Seems like a good place for them in this current list so far. Skaven are C tier. They have a couple matchups that are strong, but they really struggle against a lot of the better factions, and a lot of their counters are really strong right now in mass and healing and single entities. Skaven are just kind of outclassed. Plus, with ranged units being jank sometimes, like Rattling Gunners just missing netted targets for no reason, and Fate of Buna being really strong. So even if you take your Jezzails, your ranged unit that can actually hit things, if it just gets Fate of Buna, it literally dies in one spell. It's tough. It's tough right now for Skaven. They're not unplayable, but they're very tricky to play. They're definitely a counterpick only faction. High Elves. Oh boy. I'll put them in B, but above Norska. High Elves are okay. They're a little overly reliant right now on Imric and healing at the highest level of play. They're viable in other ways, but if you take Imric out of the game, then I think High Elves would be a B tier faction for sure. I could just see certain people disagreeing and saying A solely based on Imric, but I feel like people have played against the Imric meta for long enough. They're pretty good about countering him, and we're seeing a couple more Archmage builds just to mix things up a little bit. So I think they're B. I would put them above Vampire Counts, below Vampire Coast. I think that's fine. But yeah, not a lot of complaints. Well-rounded roster, things like that. Could use some buffs in some areas. Could use healing nerfs. But I mean, like, healing in general has to get nerfed, and that'll hurt the High Elves. So hopefully the High Elves get buffs other places if that healing nerf ever happens. Kislev. Biggest change between the two lists would be Kislev is top of S tier. Kislev is insane. If you're not talking about the nerfs we put on them in Vermin League, if you're just playing on Quick Battle, then they are the most broken faction in the entire game. Glorious Charge is insane, and it's on all of their cavalry besides Dervishes right now, which is ridiculous. Lore of Hags is bugged. It is confirmed to be bugged that Vengeance of Spirits does Traitorkin, overcast Traitorkin levels of damage for cheaper, and it silences your opponent. It's supposed to be Flock of Doom level, so you can see that's very, very incorrect. So they have the best spell in the game right now. They have the best cavalry in the game right now. Also, they got some of the best infantry with those 500 gold armor-piercing halberds that also get Fire Bloods. They're unbreakable. Kislev's just completely insane. The Tsarina Chariot, actually in a hotfix that came out today as I'm recording it, she got nerfed so that she can actually get hit. Wow, what a big nerf. She actually can get hit by things. But still, Kislev is top of S tier. They're incredibly ridiculous and need some serious nerfs in the next coming patches. Khorne, I'll put him in C. I'll put him above Slanesh. This might be controversial. I could see people going either or. I'll put Khorne above Slanesh for now. The Rampage changes made Scarbrand a little scary in certain matchups. He is viable now, which is nice because previously one of their only viable lords is really Valkia. But Valkia is still really strong. Minotaur spam is still really, really strong. So Khorne is kind of one note, but they have some strengths, which you can kind of lean on. But they still really need more ways to play the game than just spam Minos and hope. Tomb Kings. Above High Elves, below Vampire Coast is where I would put Tomb Kings. Actually, not above Vampire Coast. Tomb Kings are solid. They're middle of the road. They have defined weaknesses you can play around, which is not a bad thing. But they can trade up into some of the top tier factions with good Ushopti, Greatbow Kite, or Sepulchral Stalkers. Or there is some shenanigans come up with Necropolis Knights that I don't believe in, but some people do, and they've been getting wins. So, like, I won't pretend it's not a viable strategy. I just don't think it's the best way to play them. Good lords with Arkan and Katep and Cetra. Cetra's fine, even though he's a little overpriced on his chariot. His other mounts are okay. So, yeah, Tomb Kings are they're chilling. I don't think they should get nerfs, but I also don't really think they should get buffs. I think they need just more units. They need like a second DLC pack. But as for the units they currently have, I'd mostly leave them alone. Obviously, you're going to be like, oh, but this unit sucks. Okay, I mean, sure, buff that, but I meant more of in a meta state. It's not like Tomb Kings in general need to go up or down. They're fine. Lizardmen! S tier. I put them between Kislev and Tzeentch. Lizardmen were already S tier, and they got across the board buffs in that one patch. I'm not salty about that at all. Cough, cough. But yeah, if you don't know why they're S tier, then I don't know what to tell you. Slans are the best lore in the entire game, and you have a variant of every single lore of Magic. Well, pretty much every lore of Magic. Best lords, one of the most cost-effective rosters across the board. Their only weakness is they don't have good heavy cavalry, but they have everything else to make up for it. They're doing just fine in the healing meta. They're living their best life, and I am very tired of seeing them already. Greenskins. I'll put them in A. This might be controversial, but I'll put them in A. With the Rampage changes, you can actually use Fermented Fungi on Skarsnik or the Night Goblin War Boss and get a guaranteed, get a flying unit to the ground, which is one of the huge counters to Greenskins in Warhammer 3, is flying spam. They just can't deal with it, because flyers can avoid archers pretty darn easily in the current game. Like, think of gyrocopters or pterodons. Archers don't do that much damage to them unless your opponent literally AFKs for multiple volleys in front of you. But now you can just rampage them to the ground, and all of a sudden Air Cheese and Greenskins isn't such a threat. They're doing pretty good. Pretty solid. Their lord choices are still a little meh across the board, but the rest of their roster is doing just fine. So, Greenskins, A, benefiting from the rampages. Empire, also A. I will put them just above Greenskins. Empire Warwagon Kite is still quite strong, but their other modes of play is what makes them so dangerous. Like, Huntsman Pike and Shot Spam isn't that dangerous on its own. Cavalry Rush isn't that dangerous on its own. Great Sword Spam isn't that dangerous on its own. But it's the fact they can do all those things, kind of like Warriors of Chaos, that make them a little more deadly than Greenskins, where you know Greenskins are going to rush you, so you can kind of prepare for that. The Empire can really play a lot of different ways, which is fine. I don't think that's bad, but I wish War Wagons and Healing got nerfed a little bit. Karl Franz is a cool character, and he does rely on a life caster keeping him alive, but it does get annoying when Franz lands and you just see a regrowth hit him and he's fine. So, yeah. Empire, A, just above Greenskins. I'd actually put him above Ogres. Yeah, I'd put him above Ogres. Do I put Greenskins above Ogres? That's tricky. I think they're very comparable. I'll leave Ogres above Greenskins for now, but I could be persuaded either way. Derfs. Derfs. I'm thinking B, but where in B? Lower than High Elves, above Vampire counts. That tracks. Derfs. Dwarves have been slowly fading. Very lore thematic there, but dwarves have been very slowly fading. They're still strong. They're still a solid mid-tier faction. But Thoric took some nerfs, which he needed, but the roster didn't get buffs in other places. And now with the Rampage changes, as I've mentioned, several factions that used to have issues with Gyrocopter spam can now just drag them to the ground with Rampage. That is actually a huge blow to dwarves in several matchups. Plus, people just feel like they're getting better at playing around them. And there have been more blob punishment spells added to the game, like the Vengeance of Spirits from Kislev, that can really punish Hero Hammer styles. So dwarves just kind of are getting solved right now. And with Thrones of Decay, I imagine they'll jump up this tier list. But for now, I put them in B. Bretonia, still S tier. I would put them above above Zinch, with the caveat that I'm talking about the faction in general and not just my Vermin League restrictions on them. Because Vermin League, we've restricted them to one Grail Knight, one Grail Guardian, or one Hippogriff Knight. So one of any of those. Which on Quick Battle, you can still spam out all their really strong units. So that's what I'm basing this off of. I'm not basing it off of my restrictions. So when you can spam Grail Knights and all that stuff and Lewin and healing, they're very strong. But that is again couched in, okay, if you just prepare for 3 Grail Knights and you like net them and kill them all, then great, you can beat them, sure, but is a good player really going to clump up all their Grail Knights and get them all massacred at the same time? You could also be dealing with 8 peasant bowmen and a bunch of peasant mobs and some other cheaper knights. Like, Bretonia has a bunch of different ways to play, not just that one style. So, they're strong. I put them below Lizards, above Zinj. Chaos Dwarves. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to put them down in C. I think they're above Wood Elves. I think they're above Skaven. But Chaos Dwarves, kind of like their Dwarven brethren, they have been a falling star for me. I think they're a very cool faction, but if you're asking me on their strength, like actual faction strength, I think they're down in C. Maybe the top of C, but they're down in C. They just lack versatility. You kind of know what's coming at you. It's going to be a Lord on a Bull or Astrogoth. Though, like, I haven't seen Astrogoth win in forever. So if you're going to win, it's probably the Lord on a Bull, probably an Iron Demon ROR, maybe some Bull Centaurs, maybe some Infernal Ironsworn. Their weapons teams don't feel like they were doing as much damage as they used to. There was no nerf that I know of, but they just kind of feel meh right now. And a lot of people are getting good at shutting down those weapons teams. Dark Elves, definitely A tier. I'll put them above Greenskins and Ogre Kingdoms, but the thing is, that feels weird because both Greenskins and Ogre Kingdoms beat Dark Elves right now, but Dark Elves are better in more matchups. So even though they're countered by these two, they are much more competitive in various matchups. Their Soul Stealer Dragon is still really, really strong. Their Arm Piercing Missiles are still really strong. Arm Piercing Heavy Cav, all these things. So Dark Elves still chilling, still top of meta, even if they aren't OP right now. I don't know what I would change about them. I still think that, like, the game overall needs healing reworks, and that would nerf Dark Elves quite a lot from their reliance on their Soul Stealer Lords and Malice Darkblade and things like that to heal themselves up. They would go down quite a bit. And that seems weird that just nerfing their lords a little bit would drag them down, but their roster is overall rather B tier, middle of the road, which isn't a bad thing. It's fine. It's well balanced. But then their lords are some of the most cost effective and best in the game. So I think if you nerf those, it'll take them straight out of A tier down to B. S tier. I'm going to put Cathay up here. Cathay are annoying. Cathay are unfun. Cathay suck. But they are S tier. I think they're the bottom of S. I think they are beneath Zinch. Zaytang is strong, but he's very expensive. And then nothing else added in the Shadows of Change 2.0 really pumps them up further into S tier. It's just like, oh, these are kind of nice. Celestial Lion is kind of nice. The Onyx Crowman took some nerfs. Now they're demonic, so they went down a little bit. I still think they're S tier, for sure. I'm not arguing it. I just think Zinch is maybe a little better. I could see Zinch being below them, but I don't think Cathay is as strong as Bretonia without any restrictions. And I don't think they're as strong as Lizardmen or Kislev. So I think Grand Cathay is the gatekeeper to S tier. Finally, Beastmen. Oh, Beastmen. I think they're A. A tier. They've been doing pretty solid. But where to put them? I think they're ahead of Greenskins. I think they're ahead of Ogres. Yeah, I'll put them just behind Dark Elves here. Beastmen are solid. They got the Centaurs of Zinch, so now they have some cheap armor-piercing light cav that actually performs, unlike Centaurs with great weapons that for some reason suck. Centaurs of Zinch are actually really, really good, so it's a good addition to their roster. And that is really all that changed, but they're still really good. Zongors with their changes are actually quite nice for the Beastmen. Because it's funny, the Zongor changes aren't as good for Zinch, because it's now a defensive infantry. Because Zinch already had Chaos Warriors, but Beastmen didn't have Chaos Warriors. So now Zongors being more defensive actually gives them options where if they want a tankier front line that'll actually hold, they can get Zongors, where, you know, their Ungors don't exactly hold. Their Gore herds are more offensive than defensive. So, yeah, they're liking that. The Zinch Centigors with their arm piercing are really, really good. Basemen are just chilling. They're a strong, solid roster. Almost all of their lords are viable, and certain ones are very good. Beastmen are happy. That is the tier list. How different is it? Zinch and Kislev are up in S tier from last time we talked. Empire's out of B tier. They're into A in my version. Oh, Chaos Dwarves were down in C tier last time, though they're behind Nurgle, which I find laughably crazy, but sure, whatever. Greenskins moved up due to Rampage changes. Dwarves, Vampire Coast moved down. Otherwise, pretty similar. And I think that is largely why people were bummed about this last patch that came out, is strong factions got stronger and more S tier, and weak factions got weaker or stayed in the bottom. Like, look at the bottom. Nurgle, Chaos Dwarves, Khorne, Wood Elves, Skaven, Slaanesh, Demons of Chaos. Chaos Dwarves, Wood Elves, Skaven, Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, Demons of Chaos. Even if you disagree about the order, it's still just like, yeah, these are the same bad factions. Yeah, these are generally the same good ones. And then the middle shifts around a little bit. But anyway, that's my tier list. If you disagree with it, you're wrong, and too bad.
Roar. Subscribe, yes, yes.